The day began as usual for the small town of Wildenbruck, nestled among the hills and forests of northern Germany. The sun barely broke through the thick clouds, and a cold wind drove fallen leaves through the narrow streets. The residents hurried about their business. Some went to work, some walked the dog, and some simply enjoyed their morning coffee outside the window. But for one creature, this day could be the last. In an abandoned part of town, where old factories stood as silent monuments to the past, a German shepherd named Rex fought for his life. His once shiny black and brown fur was covered in mud and matted by the rain. His paws trembled from the cold and hunger, and his eyes, once full of pride and devotion, now stared into space. Rex lay in a metal cage, abandoned in the middle of a weed-covered yard. Around him lay broken bricks, rusty pipes, and the remains of old junk. The cage was locked with a heavy chain, with a lock that Rex could not break, even if he had the strength left in him. How did he end up here? Rex's story was sad, but not unique. His owner, an elderly man named Hans, was a veteran who lived alone after the death of his wife. Rex became his only comfort, a faithful companion who guarded the house and accompanied him on long walks in the forest. But when Hans fell ill and was hospitalized, Rex was left alone. Hans's relatives, who lived far away, did not want to take care of the dog. One of them, a cold and indifferent nephew, decided to get rid of the stray dog. He lured Rex into the car, drove him to an abandoned factory, and left him there in a cage, not even leaving him any food or water. The dog is old, he won't last long, he thought, and drove away without looking back. 3 days passed. Rex was getting weaker and weaker. The rain was pelting the cage, and the wind was piercing his bones. He would sometimes whimper softly, but he had no strength left to bark. It seemed that hope had left him, along with the warmth and love he had once known. Meanwhile, in Wildenbruck, 16-year-old Anna, the daughter of a local teacher, had returned from school. She loved animals and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. Her best friend was the cat Mirzik, whom she had rescued from the garbage dump as a kitten. Anna often walked around the neighborhood admiring nature and sometimes feeding stray dogs. That day, something made her turn onto the old road that led to the abandoned factories. Maybe it was the wind carrying a faint sound, or maybe it was intuition that was hard to explain. As Anna approached one of the courtyards, she heard a soft whimper. Her heart sank. She followed the sound and saw the cages. Inside lay Rex, exhausted, wet, but still alive. His eyes lifted to hers and a spark flickered in them, as if he were pleading, "Help!" "Oh God, who did this to you?" Anna whispered, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. She ran to the cage and tried to open the lock, but the chain was too strong. Rex tried to raise his head, but he fell back, exhausted. Anna knew she couldn't do it herself. She took out her phone and called her older brother Markus, who worked as a mechanic. Anna couldn't go home. She sat in the waiting room, holding the phone, looking for information about looking after German shepherds. Markus went back to work, but promised to practice in the evening. In the meantime, the news about the dog in the cage began to spread through the town. One of Anna's neighbors saw her and her brother following Rex to the car and told her the same story. Soon people started coming to the clinic. The old baker, Gerhard, brought a bowl of warm porridge that he had prepared for Rex. A young couple, Katja and Thomas, brought a dog bed. The local policeman, Mr. Schultz, also stopped by to see if he could find the person who had done this. Wildenbruck although a small town, show that its heart beats in unison when it comes to rescue. The next day, Rex opens his eyes. He was still weak, but he was already able to lift his head and lick Anna's hand, which had been with him all night. Lena smiled when she saw this. "He'll crawl out. You gave him a chance, Anna." But what next? Anna knew that she couldn't leave Rex in the clinic forever. Her mother, although she loved her daughter, was not enthusiastic about the idea of taking a big dog into their small house. Then Markus proposed a solution. "I have a friend, Felix, who lives outside the city, has a big yard. He's wanted a guard dog for a long time. If Rex thinks maybe this is his new home?" A week later, Rex was already standing on his feet. His fur began to grow back, and his eyes were ablaze with life again. Anna and Markus brought him to Felix, a tall man with a kind smile, who immediately stroked Rex and said, "Well, buddy, will you be my partner?" Rex barked, for the first time in a long time, and wagged his tail. Anna burst into tears, but they were tears of joy. She knew Rex was safe now. Months passed. Rex settled in with Felix, becoming more than just a guard, but a member of the family. Anna often visited him, bringing him treats and playing with him in the yard. The town of Wildenbruck did not forget the story. People began to care more about homeless animals, and Anna decided to create a small fund to save dogs, calling it Rex's Chance. Thus, the German Shepherd, who was left to die, became a symbol of hope and human kindness. His rescue united people and reminded them that even in the darkest times, someone can lend a helping hand.